How's everybody doing today? I'm Sheriff Rick Jones, and I'm here today with Etta, domestic violence diversion counselor. We're here today to talk about Domestic Violence Awareness Month, this month. The color that we're wearing, you can see we both have on, is purple, and so that's their color for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And pink is the color for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And everybody has different colors for different meanings. And so today I'm gonna let Etta go ahead and tell us a little bit about what's going on with domestic violence and what you do, and then we'll get to the drug part of it and the diversion in the courts.
Well, my name is Etta, and I work for the coach as a diversion counselor. And what I do is when courts refer clients to me, I have classes that consist of anger management for defendants that have to do domestic violence in the court. I have the batterers intervention program. I have anger management for men and women. I have the theft class. I have a theft program. And I also have, for victims of domestic violence, I have a class for them to help educate. I feel like education is empowering and it's powerful for those who are involved as victims of domestic violence, because a lot of times victims that I've worked with do not know where the resources are. A lot of times they don't even know that they are victimized by domestic violence. A lot of times they say, every time he gets drunk, this happens, or every time I upset him, this thing happened. But domestic violence is a crime, and it is a learned behavior, and it is about, not just about hitting, but it's about power and control. And an abuser will use different things to take control over their intimate partner, such as the domestic violence can be sexual violence, psychological, verbal, physical. It's not just physical, it can be all those things. And the other part of that is that a lot of times they have children, and the children see this behavior, and it is a learned behavior. And so children learn the behavior of hitting and being mean to other kids, grow up with that behavior. They become bullies in school, and eventually teen dating violence, become violent toward a teen that they're dating, and it escalates into domestic violence as they marry or live together as intimate partners.
What I've seen in law enforcement, the most dangerous call that law enforcement go on is domestic violence. Most people don't understand that. When they get that call, we send more than one police officer. We'll get there when the call comes down, it's domestic violence. Most police officers are killed or injured during a domestic violence call. When they get there, most of the time it's the male abusing the female, but we've also arrested females where it's the opposite, just not as much. But it does go both ways.
It does.
Majority not. And I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it does happen. When we get there, a lot of times the male has used violence, and it's visible, and the law's been changed. Used to, if the victim didn't file a report, no one got arrested. But if somebody says they were injured, or they pushed them, or they threatened them, somebody's going to get arrested. And the police normally know these calls because they go there more than once. And a lot of times they'll end up in death, which is sad. But when the officer makes the arrest, usually the other person that is there usually ends up in the scuffle, don't want them arrested. And that's when the police get injured. We've seen it to where the male will be getting arrested and the female will be on the back of the officer fighting them, even though they made the call. But it goes both ways, just not as often as the one way. And what we got to do is, it is a learned behavior. When you grow up in a household and the spouse abuses the other one in front of the kids, and you think that's normal. The kids are being programmed.
Absolutely.
Kids get programmed when they see their parents go to work, or their parent go to work every day. They're being programmed. When they go to school, it's a learned behavior.
Yes.
It's one thing to look at the books, read the books, go to school, but you watch your parents.
Yes.
You emulate your
Yes.
parents, what they do, what they say.
Yeah.
And this is really a big issue. I have close to 1,000 prisoners here, Etta, and I'd say a majority of them have either been involved in domestic violence, witnessed it, or actually were the cause of it. And for us to be able to talk about that today,
Yes.
and talk about some of the things that you can do.
Yeah.
In police, we have pamphlets we hand out. We tell
Yes.
people where they can go. But when you're there, the police is there, the life squad's there,
Yeah.
someone's getting arrested,
Yes.
you don't always know or pay attention.
Yes.
Then when you go to court, it's a very cold environment. I'd like to say it's the most sweetest place to go in the world,
Yeah.
but it's not.
It's not.
Everybody deals with this. We got the courts, and it's very cold, tough environment. That's why there's victim advocates for the courts.
Yes.
That's why there's victim advocates for the sheriff to try
Yes.
to take the victims, and when they come to jail,
Yeah.
and when their family come to visit,
Yes.
it's not the sweetest place in the world to go. It's very cold. You're dependent on bureaucracy. We do this every day. We try to make it work as smooth as we can,
Yes.
but it's very difficult.
Absolutely.
What would you recommend to people that are listening to this today? What can they do? What are some of the signs of the abuse? How does it start?
Okay. Well, like I said earlier, it is a learned behavior. When a young man or a young woman meet, he doesn't say or she doesn't say, you know what, I'm going to slap you, I'm going to kick you, I'm going to bite you, I'm going to spit on you, I'm going to cuss you out, I'm going to call you names. Abusers are very charming, and they are very attractive to someone in the beginning of the relationship. I know when I was victimized, the person that I was married to for over 10 years was my high school sweetheart. And that I had never been hurt by being in love or domestic violence, never even heard the words domestic violence. Did not know I was being controlled when I was told to wear certain clothes. I was told to be at a certain place at a certain time. I thought that he loved me so much that this is what I'm doing to please him. And that's what a lot of victims think. They don't immediately see themselves as victims of domestic violence. And you're correct, it is the most dangerous call that police go on all over the country. And even in Butler County, we have Amy's Law, which actually came out of Butler County, which means that if the police are called, somebody is going to jail. And it's the police judgment to look at both parties and listen to the stories and decide who's going to jail. When they get to court, of course, but like you said too, at that moment, the victim is trying their best to say, I just called you, I just wanted you to make him calm down or make him go somewhere else till we, can get this together. But the truth of the matter is that most women are murdered during that time. Most women are murdered during the time that they're trying to leave without a safety plan. And a lot of women have been threatened, if you call the police, I'll kill you. If you call the police, I'll kill your mom, I'll kill your dad. So a lot of times victims don't want to be in that position. So when the police do come, they want that relief from him, but they don't want him to be gone. They just want the police to calm down. And I have to tell victims that the police are not counselors, they're not mediators. They are coming to arrest somebody. And in that way, we have to. I have to explain, and the advocates have to explain this is what happens. Because a lot of women come to court and say, I don't want this, I didn't want this in the first place. But because of Amy's Law and because of the court system that we have in Butler County, we have to follow through with that. So once someone is arrested, a civil protection order or a temporary protection order, TPO, is issued through the courts. There's, the hearings that happen in the court, and the judge has to look at Amy's Law. They have questions that they look at and find answers to from the victim to determine how severe the domestic violence situation was. About the protection order, a lot of victims say, well, we don't want it, but the judge makes a decision.
On a protection order, I don't mean to interrupt you, but people need to realize that's a piece of paper.
Yes,
That's all it is.
absolutely.
There's been victims that have been killed
Yes.
with that protection order
Yes.
in their pockets.
Absolutely.
And when you're having this domestic violence back and forth in the heat of it, reason doesn't come into play.
Right.
And so they're so enraged, they show up anyway, and the police do counseling. They just don't come there to arrest you. They talk more than they have to arrest. But in domestic violence, usually when somebody is called, there's been violence.
Oh, yeah.
But they try not to arrest. But in this case, in Amy's law, the reason that we have Amy's law, I'm going to let you explain that, but I don't want to take away with explaining the protection order and what they can do. But you got to realize that's still just a piece of paper. It makes you feel better, but it doesn't mean they won't violate that. And depends if they've been incarcerated before. But in love, the heat of the love, the anger, it all gets intertwined, and people get hurt.
Absolutely.
Didn't mean to take away or interrupt you, but
That's okay.
on the protection order, then what do they do from there after they get the protection order?
They have to stay away from the victim. The defendant or the abuser has to stay away from the victim until they come back to court. Actually, it's supposed to stay in place as long as the case is open in courts. And a lot of times, victims come back to court to request that the protection order is dropped. If they want a civil protection order, they have to go to domestic relations court. That civil protection order can be good anywhere in the United States up to 5 years. You're correct, it is a piece of paper. Again, it's a tool that abusers use to victimize, frighten, put the victim in fear because of the protection order. So a lot of women do not utilize it, and when they do, it's not what we hope that it can be, because the abuser has to follow those directions, and a lot of times they don't. And that's why it's just a piece of paper. And so the safe thing to do as far as victims is to find out the resources. We have the Dove House in Butler County, which is a beautiful building that's about 2 going on 3 years old. We have excellent people that work there. We have classes for victims. And like I said, education is powerful and empowering to let them know where the resources are. And another thing that I'm working on, because I am a minister at Christ Temple, is trying to talk through the church, because a lot of people feel like Christians don't go through things like this. And the truth of the matter is, yes, we do, but because of church, a lot of times we don't want to express that. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear with the victims of domestic violence. A lot of times they don't want to share that that's what they're going through at home. Even if it's just verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is sometimes as detrimental to the family as physical abuse. So I think nowadays we are way more aware of what goes on as far as intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and people wonder, well, why don't she just leave? Well, leaving is the most dangerous time for victims. Most victims that are murdered is during the time that they leave without a safety plan. So there's advocates in all our courts in Butler County. There's people that can talk to victims to help them plan out how to leave, find a way that they can save a few dollars, find someone who could keep items for them if they have to leave in a hurry. I always suggest that they put important papers in a folder so they don't have to run all over the house looking for important papers, especially if they have children. The other thing is make sure you have a cell phone that you can use, because a lot of times abusers break cell phones. And the other thing I wanted to mention is it is true that men are victimized also. The statistic is 85, 75. It's sometimes it's touching 60% or 65%, but men are not as open as far as women are as sharing their situation. But since I've been doing anger management with men, the one thing that I've found that men I have created an environment where they feel safe to talk about domestic violence that they have been through with parents, especially fathers and sons. Some share that mother was abusive, and that is another thing that helps strengthen an abuser not to be an abuser, because once they tell their stories and understand that that's not the right or correct way to do things, I find that they're more open to change and more open to listen to better ways to deal with their family, because I always ask them, do you want to be loved? You know, love should never hurt. And everybody always say, yes, I want to be loved. Well, then I talk about ways that, things that you can think about, how you can change your ways. And the other thing is, again, I can't overstate children that's involved in domestic violence. Child Protective Services, we have partnered with them. I think our work with Child Protective Services began in January. I talked to mothers who have been victimized, and Child Protective Services does to try to reunite the family. But again, I think the education part is so essential for men and women in these relationships, because really, I think, like you said, at the core of these people, I think they want to be loved. They want to be good parents. They want their marriage to work. I wanted my marriage to work. I stayed with my ex-husband for 10 years. I was abused. I didn't tell anybody, but I stayed that long because I wanted my family to work. I wanted my children to be raised with their father.
You learn these things in life. Your parents, my parents were married like 50, 60 years, but there's divorce in my family and there's marriage in my family, just like there are in all families. The funny thing about my household growing up, my mom was the boss, and my dad was a policeman, and he was a real tough guy, but I never seen him abuse my mother. I think he was afraid of her. We were all afraid of her. My mom was the boss. My dad, when he would discipline us, he would shout at us a little bit, but my mom was a pincher. And my brothers were so big, it's an Appalachian thing. She would get under our arms and pinch us. We were so big, she couldn't give us a whipping or a spanking, as you call it today. But she'd get under your arm because we were so much bigger and just pinch you. It's an Appalachian thing. And but I was very fortunate. We've all been fortunate. And I'm glad to be able to bring this to this discussion stage where people know how they can get help. And is there any numbers they can call?
It's the National Hotline for Domestic Violence, the Domestic Violence National Hotline. All you have to do is Google it, and the number, the 1-800 number will come up. In Ohio, we also have ODVN, which is Ohio Domestic Violence Network. They are experts at domestic violence, and they can give help and information, direction, and resources to victims of domestic violence. But the national hotline is everywhere, so you can Google it, you can find it. I wish I knew the number by heart. I don't.
But what we'll do is we'll put that number before you leave. When we do this video appears, it'll have all the numbers to call.
Okay.
How's that? See how
That's
magical
fine.
that is?
Yes. The Dove House in Butler County. And like I said, and I do the classes. I do, if the Dove House asks me to come over and do a class, I gladly go over there to do them. And at DeCoach, like I said, I work for DeCoach, and I'm there, and I can be, others can refer clients, victims of domestic violence, anger management, men or women, to DeCoach.
Etta, I'd like to thank you for showing up today and discussing this and having this discussion for people to ask for help, and maybe we can break some of the chain reactions from family members and the kids. We often have to take kids out of the house when there's domestic violence. Both parents get arrested. They have to go to children's services. It's for family members. It's very disruptive, and that's when they start getting the programming. So hopefully we can break this chain. And you and I hopefully have gave some good advice, some good information out, and we'll have the numbers that will appear before and after on this magical screen when it's over.
That'd be great.
I'd like to tell everybody we do care, and we want to try to break this chain, and we want you to have a safe and good holiday, good Christmas, good Thanksgiving,
Yes.
and even a good Halloween.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to part with today?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the holidays, because domestic violence increases during the time of the holidays, during the time of Thanksgiving and Christmas. The more people are involved in domestic violence during those holidays. So it's a good thing that you did mention that. In closing, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to express some of the issues and resources that we have in Butler County. They are available. We are here. It doesn't matter who you are. Just find those numbers, call those people. They will be glad to help. There's no shame in trying to reach out for help if you need it. And this is my passion. This is what I do. So I do it because my personal history, and I didn't have the help, so I'm glad to be a help to somebody. And I thank you again for this opportunity.
I'd like to thank everybody, and good luck, and we'll see you next time.